Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the True Purpose of Life. Today we are going to explain Revelation chapter 6. We have to deal with four horsemen at the Gallop of Apocalypse, as otherwise you have heard. In this day of crisis, are we not intensely interested in the things that must shortly take place? Surely we are, for we ourselves are involved. So let us now accompany John as Jesus proceeds to open that intriguing scroll. Remarkably, John does not have to read it. Why not? Because its contents are conveyed to him in signs by a series of dynamic, action-packed scenes. So let's read first Revelation 6 verse 1 and let us understand the first seal of the scroll. Revelation chapter 6 verse 1 says, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seven seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures say with a voice as of thunder, 'Come.'" Now, this is the voice of the first cherub. We know that the cherubs, we had four cherubs. One is lion-like, the other is like a bear, the other one is human face, and the fourth one is of an eagle. Now, the first cherub is of lion-like appearance, and this would suggest to John that Jehovah's organization will act with courage in executing his righteous judgment. And to whom is that command addressed? It could not be to John, for John has already been invited to share in these prophetic scenes. That voice as of thunder is calling forth other participants in the first of a series of four rousing episodes. So the other participants are the John class, the 24 elders that we learned, the 144,000. Now, John here, as we mentioned in the previous chapter, looked to himself in the Lord's day. So he sees, he visioned himself 2,000 years in advance. So after his resurrection, what was going to take place? So John died 2 years after the book of Revelation he was revealed to him, and he wrote it, because the book of Revelation was written in the year 98 CE, and John dies a little bit after, and he was in sleep of death almost 2,000 years, and he woke up as a spirit creature in heaven with the rest of his brothers like Peter and Paul and Luke and so many other ones, Jesus' disciples and followers, in 1918 CE, which is a point that we are going to explain in detail. Now, so, however, all Paul, Peter, they have been dead here in 98 CE before John. So John was the last apostle to stay alive, and this was prophetic, because when Peter asked Jesus, what about this one, John, if he is going to stay with me, he's going to be alive, Jesus said, in a sense, what concern is to you, he said to Peter. So you just keep following me, and don't be concerned with additionals. So Jesus could not explain to Peter that John was going to survive Peter even 30 years or 40 years later. But at last they all were going to meet in heaven as spirit creatures as part of 24 elders, 144,000 in 1918 CE. Now, the white horse and its illustrious rider. Number one, John, and with him the zealous John class and companions of today that are of the great crowd with earthly hope, those who will continue to survive Armageddon, and will live with blood and flesh on the earth, right? They are privileged to see the fast-moving drama. So let's go now to verse 2 of chapter 6 and see what it says. And I saw, and look, a white horse, and the one seated upon it had a bow, and a crown was given him, and he went forth conquering to complete his conquest. Yes, in answer to that thunderous come, right, a white horse charges forth. In the Bible, the horse often symbolizes warfare. So this is explained to Psalm chapter 20, verse 7, and Proverbs 21:31, and Isaiah 31:1. If you read the scriptures by yourself, you'll find that horse symbolizes warfare. Now, this horse, likely a beautiful stallion, gleams with whiteness. So whiteness symbolizes righteousness and peace. That indicates unblemished holiness at the same time, because it's pure, it's white. So let's go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 first. So Revelation chapter 1 and verse 14. It says, moreover, his head and his hair were white as white wool, as snow, and his eyes were like a fiery flame. Now, still we are talking here for whiteness, right? Which means unblemished holiness, righteousness, and peace. So let's read chapter 4, verse 4. Chapter 4, verse 4 of the book of Revelation says, all around the throne were 24 thrones, and on these thrones I saw seated 24 elders, dressed in what? Says, dressed in white garments, and on their heads golden crowns. So again, whiteness is brought to light. If we go to chapter 7, verse 9 of the book of Revelation, it says, after this I saw, and look, a great crowd. Now this with earthly hope here for us as humans, because we are involved here, which no man was able to number. We know the number of 24 elders, or 144,000 in heaven, but we don't know the number of the earth. Humans that are going to survive Armageddon and will be survive in the final test and will last forever on the earth. We don't know the number here. Out of all nations and tribes and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in what? See? Dressed in white robes. White. And there were palm branches in their hands. So whiteness again means unblemished holiness. So to survive Armageddon, we have to be unblemished and holy and obedient, righteous, and peaceable people, you see. Let's go to Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. And look at verse 11. Revelation 20, verse 11. It says, and I saw a great white throne, and the one sitting on it. From before him the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. Again, and I saw a great white throne, and the one seated on it. So who sits in the white throne? Jehovah God. All right? From before him, the earth and the heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. Good. Now, we'll explain these things when we get to chapter 20 in detail. Now we are explaining the whiteness, because we have the white horse and the rider on top of the horse, dressed in white as well, and says, now how appropriate this is, for it portrays warfare that is clean and righteous in Jehovah's holiness. So Revelation chapter 19, verse 11 and 14. So let's go to Revelation chapter 19, verse 11 to 14. Verse 14 it says, verse 11 it says first, I saw heaven opened, and look, a white horse. Again is mentioned the white horse. And the one seated on it is called Faithful. So he is a faithful rider, right? The one seated on the white horse is faithful and true, so he cannot tell lies. And he judges and carries on war in righteousness, in whiteness, right? Righteousness, whiteness means righteousness as well. In verse 14, it says, also, the armies in heaven were following him on white horses. So was not the king, right? That is carrying warfare here, in the warfare of righteousness with courageous justice, because you see the voice of a lion here. But the rest of the army of the heavens, which includes 144,000 with him, we are talking here in Armageddon. This warfare is taking place. But the angels as well in whiteness. Actually, in 1914, Jesus was only with the angels, because the 144,000, the 24 elders, were not resurrected as yet. However, in Armageddon, there will be 144,000. Jesus taking the lead in 144,000, and the angels will be there to execute judgment against this present day human society and imprison Satan, the devil, and its demons. Now, again, for us to clarify this point, the rider of the white horse. Who is the rider of this white horse, who is dressed in white? Let's strengthen this point. And now, first, he has a bow, an offensive weapon of war, right? So he is also given a crown. So to whom are the crowns given, right? To kings. The only righteous ones seen wearing crowns during the Lord's Day are Jesus and the class represented by the 24 elders. So as we mentioned in chapter 4 and 5, Jesus is the primary seed of God's heavenly organization, or the woman, and 144,000, starting with his disciples and apostles, that constitute that are 24 elders, that constitute 144,000, God's heavenly kingdom government. So they are going to rule as priests, judges, and kings as well. Will have three responsibilities in one person. So they are going to rule with Christ, and they have crowns as well as their Lord Jesus Christ have. So the only righteous seen wearing crowns during the Lord's Day, we mentioned the Lord's Day is Jesus' Day, as Michael starts from 1914, crosses Armageddon until 1,000 years after Armageddon are over, which is the final test. So we calculate 1,000 years plus 150 14, 15, 16, 20. So 1120 years probably. So this is all Lord's Day. But the last days of this human society start from 1914 to Armageddon, right? So are two different things. So they all are dressed in white, they have crowns, and they will be ready for warfare in Armageddon. Now, so they are called righteous. Now, we survivors of Armageddon with blood and flesh, as Jehovah's people, we are not going to be constituted righteous. Is something that we are going to understand in the future. Yet, we will be constituted righteous, but this is going to be only after we pass the final test. So, on the other hand, 24 elders, or 144,000, the anointed one, that are they don't need to go through the final test. Their test here is because they will those that will die after Armageddon, they will not really die. They will be resurrected in the blinking of an eye, so they will not taste death at all. They go in heaven directly. They will not go through the final test. They have proved themselves as the anointed of Jehovah. They have stood faithful during their earthly course, and they will be resurrected instantly, less than a second. They will strip off their physical body, they die physically, and they are resurrected in a spiritual body. And for them is not second death or the final test. So that's the privilege that they have, the ones that will rule as kings, priests, and judges, and will be part of our heavenly kingdom government. Now, let's read Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, 14, and 27. So Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, 14, and 27. 13 says, "And I kept watching in the visions of the night, and look, with the clouds of the heaven, someone like the Son of Man was coming, and he gained access to the Ancient of Days." So, again, I kept watching in the visions, says Daniel. Daniel here is 700 years before John. Vision of the night, and look, with the clouds of the heavens, someone like the Son of Man. Son of Man is Jesus Christ. So Daniel looked to the vision, the Son of Man. Jesus has not come to heaven, to earth. It was not transmitted, was not transformed yet from heaven to earth. This was going to take place 700 years later. So, but John here, look at the vision 2,700 years in advance, what was going to happen during the Lord's Day, and says, someone like the Son of Man was coming, and he gained access to the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days, as we mentioned previous chapters, is Jehovah God, and they brought him up close before that one, before Jehovah. Now, verse 14, "And to him there were given rulership," right? So Jesus started to rule as king, because from 33 CE until 1914 he was sitting at the right hand, at the right side of his father, right, waiting for his father to put to throw Satan from heaven, even though Jesus was involved to that, to the vicinity of the earth, and then that constituted Jesus directly as king. So it says, "And to him there were given rulership," so in 1914, honor and the kingdom. So he began to rule as king of God's heavenly kingdom government, "that the peoples, nations, and language groups shall all serve him. His rulership is an everlasting rulership, not like this present day governments, temporary, that will not pass away, Means that that kingdom is going to last forever and ever. And his kingdom will not be destroyed like humans' government, because Jesus himself is going to destroy these governments on Armageddon. Now, in verse 27, it says, "And the kingdom and the rulership and the grandeur of the kingdoms under all the heavens were given to the people who are the holy ones of the Supreme One." So 144,000. Their kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all rulerships will serve and obey them. So 140 Jesus and 144,000, God's heavenly kingdom government, will rule over the earth forever and ever. So very interesting point, right? Now let's look to Luke chapter 1 verse 31 to 33, another point based on what we just mentioned. Luke, come on. Okay, Luke chapter 1 verse 31 to 33. It says in verse 31, "And look, you will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and you are to name him Jesus. This one will be great and will be called Son of the Most High, Son of Jehovah. And Jehovah God will give him the throne of David his father." Means that he's going to rule as king. And verse 33 says, "And he will rule as king over the house of Jacob forever, and there will be no end to his kingdom," or to his government. So again, we are talking about the kingdom, heavenly kingdom government. All right? Because Jesus here, to establish his kingdom, he had to clean up the heavens. That's why verse 2 says, "And I saw, and look, a white horse, and the one seated upon it had a bow, and a crown was given him. And he went forth conquering, and to complete his conquest." Now, for whom are we talking here? So now we are confirming here that we are talking about Jesus Christ, or the resurrected Jesus Christ, Michael. So all the scriptures, right, prophesied about this king, about Jesus Christ, what he was going to do on the earth, and the purpose that he came here on the earth, and the purpose that he had to go back to heaven where he came from, right? Unless Adam was going to sin, as we mentioned in the past, we will not know Jesus Christ, because there was not going to be a need for a heavenly kingdom government. But now, as Adam sinned, you see, we all miss the mark of perfection, and Jehovah's name need to be declared and sanctified. Jesus sacrificed his heavenly position, came on the earth, and established his kinship. He put it the ground for his kinship here on the earth with his disciples. He went back to heaven, and in 1914, until from 33 CE until 1914, he had to wait on the right side of his Father. And in 1914, started his day that is called the Lord's Day, because he's called our Lord. And he has taken the matters in his hand. Jehovah has given all authority to him to destroy, to crush Satan on the head by and his demons, by throwing them, cleaning the heavens up, and bringing them to the vicinity of the earth. That's why in 1914 we had so many wars, First World War and so on, which we are going to explain extensively when we have the other explanation with the second horseman of Apocalypse, that is red, totally red, which symbolizes blood. Now let's go to Revelation chapter 4 verse 4 to make sure that to the person we are talking here, we are talking about Jesus Christ, that he is the rider of the white horse. Now Revelation chapter 4 verse 4 says something that we discussed already in the previous videos. All around the throne were 24 thrones, and on those thrones I saw 20 seated 24 elders dressed in white garments and on their heads golden crowns. All right? And verse 10 says, again, we are talking with white and crowns, uh, with, uh, with unblemished holiness, righteousness, and peaceableness, and crowns kinship, right? Now, verse 10 says of chapter 4, and the 24 elders fall down before the one seated on the throne, before Jehovah, and worship the one who lives forever and ever, who is Jehovah, and they cast their crowns before the throne, saying, right? So let's go verse 14. Oh, excuse me. Chapter 14, verse 14. I'm sorry. Chapter 14, verse 14. Chapter 14 of Revelation, verse 14. It says, then I saw, and look, a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was someone like the Son of Man. So here we have the white cloud, but still we have white. Huh? We are talking for the color white, no other color. And seated on top of it, on the cloud, right? Because when Jesus appeared to, before, when he was resurrected, he appeared to 500 disciples, right? And the cloud took him. So to convince them that he went to heaven, right? Now here, in a symbolic way, is the white cloud that Jesus is. So he is surrounded with unblemished holiness. And again, and I saw and look a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was someone like a son of man, who is Jesus Christ, because he was called the Son of Man, even to Daniel, even when he presented himself to people during the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He said the Son of Man, with a golden crown, again, he is king, on his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. Now, we'll explain the sickle when we get to chapter 14. But still, we want to be convinced here that the person that we are talking here, that rides this white horse, is no other than Jesus Christ, or the resurrected Jesus Christ, who is called Michael, who is like God. Michael means the one who is like God. Okay. Now, the 24 elders have crowns as well, as we mentioned, right? Now, John in heaven a historic moment in 1914 when Jehovah declares, based to Psalm chapter 2, verse 6 to 8, I, even I, have installed my king, and tells him that this is for the purpose that I may give nations as your inheritance. Thus, in opening the first seal, Jesus reveals how he himself, as the newly crowned king, sallies forth to war at God's appointed time. Now, the scenes that we just mentioned, they harmonize beautifully with Psalms chapter 45, verse 4 to 7. Which says, and in your splendor go on to success, ride in the cause of truth and humility and righteousness, and your right hand will instruct you in fear-inspiring things. Your arrows are sharp, under you people keep falling in the heart of the enemies of the king. God is your throne to time indefinite, even forever. The scepter of your kingship is the scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and you hated wickedness. That is why God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of exaltation more than your partners. So, this scripture inspired is dedicated to Jesus Christ. So King David wrote this. We are talking here 1,000 years and something before Jesus came to earth, right? So all the prophecies lead to Jesus Christ. So let's compare with this what we just read. Hebrews, we go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 1, 2, 8, and 9. Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 1, 2, first. Long ago, God spoke to our forefathers by means of the prophets on many occasions and in many ways. Now, at the end of these days, he has spoken to us by means of a Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the system of things. Now we go verse 8 and 9. 8 says, "But about the Son he says, God is your throne forever and ever, and the scepter of your kingdom is the scepter of uprightness." Verse 9, you loved righteousness or whiteness, right? And you hated lawlessness. That is why your God anointed you with the oil of exaltation more than your companions. So still we are talking about Jesus Christ. Paul spoke about his Lord here, and about whiteness, about unblemished holiness and peaceableness, right? Now, let's discuss the point of going forth conquering. Why, though, must the newly crowned king ride forth to war? Why to war? Because we are not dealing only with a literal war. We are dealing with emotional, financial. We are dealing with sicknesses. We are dealing with persecutions. We are dealing with all kinds of things. Anything that affects our peaceful condition is a period of warfare, right? So, but our King, Jesus Christ, he is in war against demons and Satan, the devil, the ruler of the demons, right? Because this powerful angel, Satan, the devil, and his demons, they are behind the heads of many world leaders that cause war, but they are behind many commerce that increase the prices of their products. They cause slavery. They want people to work hard many hours and to get paid less, for instance. Everything that affects the human dignity, things that dehumanize us by a change of character and personality toward what is bad, doing what is bad, yes, and feeling bad. And instead of increasing love, to cultivate this quality, beautiful quality of love, we are becoming hateful people. We, instead of loving, we are hating. We are hating even our own soul. Too much suicide is going on. So is a link here that Christ on the horse, the white horse, is driving, cleaned up the heavens from Satan and demons. And they know Satan, this powerful person, and his demons, they know very well that their survivor is very short. They have a short period of time left on the earth. So all the stress that they have right now, they transmit to world leaders, to commerce, and they transmit to subordinate classes of people below them or under their leadership, and so on, until that end up to families, the head of their families, and so nobody is able to take the lead even in the family circus today. That's why children are going wild, and we are having generations that are not They have passed all moral sense, and they are arrogant, and so we are dealing with all kinds of pressure, all kinds of negative spirit in human society. So this is a link. That's why the four horses of the book of Revelation or Apocalypse, they affect us all in one way or another. Now, so going forth conquering. Why though must the newly crowned king ride forth to war? It is because his kingship is established in the face of bitter opposition from Jehovah's chief adversary, as I mentioned, Satan the devil, and those on earth who knowingly or unknowingly serve Satan's end. The birth of the kingdom itself calls for a major war in heaven, fighting under the name Michael, as I mentioned, meaning who is like God. Jesus overcomes Satan and his demons and hurls them down to the earth. Now the pressure is increased. So this is based on Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 to 12, which we are going to explain very soon. Now, Jesus' ride of conquest continues through the opening decades of the Lord's Day, as I mentioned, starts from 1914 to the end of 1,000 years millennium, while the nations and the peoples of earth are being judged and sheep-like humans are being gathered to the king's side for salvation. Though the whole world still lies in the power of the wicked one or Satan the devil, Jesus lovingly continues to shepherd his anointed brothers that are left here on the earth, that are part of 144,000, because there are some left here that direct the preaching and teaching activity and other responsibilities in 240 lands or countries, yes, for Jehovah's word to spread all over, everybody to know that he is Jehovah. So they are doing hard work here for the years that they have left here as humans on earth. Now, so Jesus here is helping his brothers to achieve this conquest of faith, right? So he is behind them, he's protecting them, he's directing them. Not only his brothers, the John class, the remnant of 144,000 left on the earth, but even the great crowd, all of us, that we are led by this remnant, the anointed one, that are part of 144,000. Now let's read 1 John chapter 5 verse 19. 1 John 1 John is right after Peter, 2 Peter. 1 John chapter 5 verse 19. 5:19 says, "We know that we originate with God, but the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one." So, we originate with God, John said. You know when you originate with God. You know when Jehovah has pulled you in as his people. He has made you part of his visible organization here on the earth. You will know that. You will not miss it. You will have tremendous confidence that you belong to Jehovah, and he is your director and protector in life. So the same way John felt in verse 19 when it says, we know that we originate with God, but the whole world, the whole present day human society, right, is lying in the power of the wicked one or in the power of Satan the devil. Even though they will say, no, I hate Satan, I'm not under Satan's power. See, that means nothing. Now, let's go to Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to 33. Matthew chapter 25, I'm sorry. Chapter 25, verse 31 to 33. Okay, in verse 31 says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit down on his glorious throne, right? All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people from one from another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. So this is going to take place right before Armageddon, because Armageddon means destruction of unrighteousness, wickedness here on the earth. Means that all humans that practice unrighteousness, lawlessness, and wickedness, they will be swept away. So before that takes place, the separation of the sheep and the goats has taken place already. So the sheep are those obedient to heavenly kingdom government, and they are citizens under this heavenly kingdom government. So we are learning now the structure of this heavenly kingdom government, with 24 elders, with Jesus as king, 4 living creatures, and so on. And is a powerful structure, it's a complicated one. So that's why we are studying about this heavenly kingdom government, the requests that this heavenly kingdom government has for us to preach and teach its structure, its purpose for the obedient mankind, right? So are so many things involved. It is not just head knowledge or simple faith. Is faith in combination with actions. So we are training you here to understand the structure of this heavenly kingdom government, its requirements. Gradually you will come in an accurate knowledge of these things, and you will have great confidence in yourself, and you will be able to help others as well. Now, what other conquest has Jesus made during the past 108 years of the Lord's day? So we know why we say, because we are in the year 2022. So the heavenly kingdom was established in 1914, right? It's about 108 years ago. And around the globe individually and as a congregation. So Jehovah's people have experienced many hardship, pressure, persecutions, as we mentioned, similar to those described by the Apostle Paul in giving proof of his ministry. So Paul was thrown into lions, into a stadium with, and they dressed Paul and other Christians with wild beast skin, and dogs were allowed to eat them up. But for one reason or another, Paul escaped death, did not die at the time. Probably was Jehovah's will, because he had much more things for him to do. So but he boasts about his ministry because of, and his persecutions and other things, because there were some inappropriate people in the congregation that they were dividing brothers and sisters, and they are discouraging their spirit. So and they are braggers, and Paul said, if it comes to bragging, I can brag more than anybody else, because I have gone through these persecutions, these hardships, these pressures. I escaped death, he said. See, so all Christians today, many, so we face opposition, we face persecution from family members, because Jesus said, I came to the earth not to bring peace, but to bring the sword, in the sense that who accept the good news, what you are learning right now, Satan is going to throw against you family members. He's going to scare you to give up from this, because he knows very well that when you become powerful in this knowledge, you will survive Armageddon, and you'll survive Satan, because Satan himself is going to be executed in the final test. So he is jealous, he is envious, he does not want anybody to be rewarded with life, because he lost that privilege himself, and he wants the rest of humankind to lose the same as he did. Now, the global congregation of Jehovah's people has shared in many conquests under the guidance of its conquering king. Outstandingly, he protected these Bible students from annihilation in 1918. So in 1918, there was so much corruption that the rest of the anointed brothers that took the lead all over the globe as the governing body at that time, Satan used governments to imprison them, and they were imprisoned for 1 year, but they were released in 1919. Satan had no power to keep them in prison. And the judge that gave the sentence, life sentence to these brothers, to these anointed ones, he was sentenced himself and had to pay $10,000 fine. Now, $10,000 fine in 1919 were a lot of money in comparison with 108 years later today. Today they are not much, but at that time they were a lot of money for the judge to pay. Now, Jehovah was with his anointed brothers, and he brought them out of prison. They started preaching and teaching activity since 1919 when he released them from prison, and they were entitled The Faithful and Discreet Slave because the prophecies were going to open. So these books were going to be understood from 1919 that we are discussing today. So these are not prophecies that I'm just explaining to now. They started to be explained in 1919 until today, and they are very clear. But we have to have much explanation first to bring to light that the rider of the white horse is Jesus Christ, no one else. Now, before and during World War II, the dictatorial Axis powers tried to wipe out Jehovah's people in many lands where religious leaders, particularly those of Roman Catholic hierarchy, gave open or tacit support to oppressive dictators. So we had Papias 12. Even he baptized Hitler as a Catholic during, when was that? In 1932 or 33, something like that. Anyhow, but this Axis lords tried to freeze the preaching work of Jehovah's people, but they failed. Before, in 1939, Jehovah's people were 141,606, but they had great increase in 1945. They increased up to 10,000 people more. And from 1945 to today, 2022, they are over 8 million people. So it's a big number. So we are always increasing, not decreasing. So Satan's work has failed. No matter how much persecution, no matter how many religions he throws against us, and how much confusion he tries to cause on people's mind and heart, so we still are increasing in number, because knowledge is power, and that power increases our faith, and our faith increases our actions. Very good. Now, our conquering king has also blessed his zealous people by leading them to many victories in the defending and legally establishing of the good news in courts of law and before rulers. And that are so many details here that we have won so many courts and the right to preach and teach, because Satan has tried so hard to freeze our work, but he always fails to do so. Now, how does Jesus complete his conquest, right, as the rider of the white horse? This he does, as we shall see, by disposing of false religion and then hurling every remaining segment of Satan's visible organization into a symbolic fire lake of destruction in vindication of Jehovah's sovereignty. So, fire lake, we are going to learn in chapter 20, means everlasting annihilation without hope of coming back. Now, confidently, we now look forward to that day at Armageddon when our King of Kings, so our King Jesus Christ of Kings, 144,000, will gain the final victory over Satan's oppressive political organization, which takes place in Armageddon. In the meantime, the invincible conqueror on the white horse continues to ride forth as Jehovah keeps adding honest-hearted ones to his righteous nation on earth. So we want to be part of this righteous nation, which is in over 240 countries all over the globe. Now, the question is, are you sharing with the Anointed John class in that joyful kingdom expansion? In that event, what the Apostle John sees when the next three seals are opened will no doubt stir you to have an even greater share in Jehovah's work for this day. So we are going to see the red horse with its rider, we are going to see the black horse with its rider, and we are going to see the pale horse with its rider, and understand the meaning of the grave that follows behind. Now, if you have any question, you can write me, and or you can send me a message to the true purpose of life at gmail.com. And if you are interested for Bible study, I can arrange that for you, no matter in what corner of the earth you are and what language you speak. Thank you very much for listening to this audio. It was all extemporaneous, so but was from the heart, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and I see you next time.